Gloria becomes a war in the House. And this is my concern, Mr. Speaker, because when you are actually putting together a committee that is going to consider an issue of impeachment on the basis of gender-sensitive matters that have been brought. And, Mr. Speaker, allow me, because I think you must protect me from the House. As I said, we need protection, Mr. Speaker. I would like to just execute my case, Mr. Speaker.
What is the point of order, Senator Sifuna?
Mr. Speaker, I listened to you very carefully when you read the charges against the governor. I do not recall any accusation against her based on her gender. I would want to understand where Senator Gloria is getting this impression that somehow the question of the impeachment of the governor of Meru has anything to do with her gender. I think, Mr. Speaker, perhaps for her benefit, you could repeat the charges against her, because I did not hear anything touching on her gender when you read the charges, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Senator Gloria, I know how passionate you are on gender issues, but please do not bring it up when it's not.
Mr. Speaker, I have said.
Senator Gloria, can you proceed and
Mr. Speaker, I have said that the matters that are arising in this case are gender sensitive. Gender sensitive. And Mr. Speaker, I honestly would like to invite the House to come for capacity building when it comes to gender mainstreaming. When I say gender sensitive, it means that the issues might appear black and white to the male senators, while in perspective and in a court of law and in an investigative institution or a committee, you can already see that there are senators who might not be able to catch the gender sensitivity of the matter. So my issue is, if indeed we are pushing to go the committee way, which I do not support, because I think that it already disadvantages the subject matter who has already been publicly persecuted by the other gender. And I think we should really try to ask ourselves, we only have 5 elected governors. And out of these elected governors who are women, we are actually putting together an 11-member committee that is constituted of only 3 senators. Can we at least then get a 50-50 of that committee? And if not, can we at least find a way to ensure that the gender-sensitive matters that keep reappearing on this impeachment, because, Mr. Speaker, I know I'm guided, I'm not supposed to talk on the issues, but there are gender-sensitive matters, including the issue of the office of the first husband. That is a gender-sensitive matter. And we have to have a committee which we, as other senators, actually believe and trust that they will execute these matters with that awareness of the gender sensitivity, because we know that it is a fact that it is the first time we're even experiencing the office of a first husband in this public nature, and most of the issues that are being brought up are actually attached to the gender matter. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say this. It is improper, and perhaps I would say morally improper, that a select few members come together and put together an 11-member committee without holding a kamkunji of any sort, without actually trying to talk to the senators and say, this is the weight of the matter, get divergent views. And Mr. Speaker, we come to the floor of the House, we are thinking we are coming to execute our duties, and we are being told under the order paper that the Senate has already resolved to put an 11-member committee. So I oppose this motion. And I want to urge my fellow women senators, because there's a saying that says, first they come for the Jews, and then they come for who. By the time they come for you, there is no one to fight for you. So I want to urge, including those senators who are women, who have been the 3 senators who have been put in the committee, this is a matter that is bigger than you, and I want to ask you people to come together to ensure that Governor Kawira has got a fair and equal platform where we can actually listen and be able to execute our duties as senators of this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ledama.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion on the following reasons. One, I empathize with my colleague who just left, Senator Gloria. And Senator Gloria, let me go on record as a person who respects women, because all my life I've worked so hard to respect women. The issue today is something which is very emotive, and I know where you're coming from. But what the Speaker has proposed is for us to consider whether we go the committee way or we go the plenary way. Mr. Speaker, listening to your communication.
Okay, please just take your seat, please. Please take your seat. Please take your seat. Senator Ledama, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me reiterate again, and I hope that I can be protected from Mr. Speaker.
What is the point of order, Senator? What is the point of order?
Mr. Speaker, point of order is a right, it's not a privilege. Standing order number 91. Stop shouting. You are not in Masai Market. Stop looking down at the people.
Kindly.
No. Don't stop shouting at me. You are not in a market. Point
Senator
of order,
Chirenge.
Mr. Speaker. Standing order
You
number
are
91.
out of order, Senator Chirenge. You have the floor. Address the chair.
Mr. Speaker, point of order on 101, contents of the speech, and standing order number 1. The Senator of Narok, my good friend, who happens to be the Deputy Minority Leader, should stop engaging a member directly. He should stop, Mr. Speaker. Instead of talking to Gloria directly, he should address Gloria through the chair. And that is what I'm just saying. So, Mr. Speaker, this is not a protest, my brother. Easy maandamano. Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying is that he should engage Senator Gloria through the seat, Mr. Speaker, through your chairmanship. Not assenting, Mr. Speaker. And we need protection. If there are people who want to do maandamano, they can go to Kamukunji. This is a house of rules and regulations. He should just address Senator Gloria through the chair, Mr. Speaker. And therefore is out of order.
Very well, Senator Chirenge. Senator Ledama, kindly proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I know people are excited to go on holiday, but being cantankerous should not be one of the excitements. Mr. Speaker, earlier on I indicated clearly that I support this motion because this will not be my first impeachment proceeding, or rather removal proceeding, that I participate in. I've sat here and I know the reasons why I was among the people who proposed that we go the committee way. Mr. Speaker, I sat on this very chair when we were removing Governor Mike Sonko. And my colleague who was sitting on the right, the majority leader, said to me, this is a political process. This is not a legal matter. On that day, I was naive. I sat there, I took my pen and paper, and I was following the arguments which were being made by the legal counsels for both parties. But ultimately, when it came to the point of us voting, I was not given an opportunity. Our standing orders do not give us an opportunity to now contribute and say, this is the reason why I will vote to impeach Mike Sonko, or these are the reason why I will not vote to impeach Mike Sonko. Mr. Speaker, it was simple. Come and vote. Article 123 of the Constitution. And this is to inform my dear sister, the nominated senator, what's her name? Senator Gloria, that ultimately, when it comes down to voting, only head of delegations are the ones who will vote. Elected senators. That is by the Constitution, that is not by Ledama or Lekena. So it doesn't matter whether the matter is so emotive. In fact, what will even give the governor an opportunity for a fair hearing is when a committee sits looks at the issues, the evidence, go through. Mr. Speaker, when I sat here, even if I had my pen and paper and I can read very fast, I never got an opportunity to examine the evidence which was being presented for the removal.
Honorable Senators, can you consult in law?
So, Mr. Speaker, like I said, I know this is an emotive issue, but for the first time, let us be seen as having given justice an opportunity. I particularly say that I would never participate, although it is my duty, I would never participate in a plenary session to remove a governor. Because what we do, we sit here, you know, the two parties argue their matters, they bring matters of law. We are not a court of law, we are quasi-judicial process. In fact, it is purely political. It has got nothing to do with law. We know very well, when I listen to the charges you brought that have been read out, Mr. Speaker. You know, I will read Article 207 of the Constitution. I will read Section 109 of the PFM Act. But seriously, sitting down here as a senator, will I get an opportunity now to say, give me the evidence? Let me go through the evidence, the receipt that the governor authorized the spending of money at source. Those are accusations. Mr. Speaker, I think it is important for our colleagues to remember that this Senate does not impeach a governor. The impeachment happens in the county assembly. The county assembly are the ones who impeach the governor. Our job here is very simple. As per Article 181 of the Constitution, is to go through the law that was set up by this Parliament, which is the County Governments Act, to go through the process of removal. In fact, it will come to a point whether we're looking at it. We're not going to be looking at it whether this is a man or a woman, or whether the members of the committee were former governors. I dare say that the two distinguished senators who are former governors are really well thought out, very intelligent leaders who can be able to guide this process. So, Mr. Speaker, as emotive as the matter might be, let us remember one thing, that we can today decide, let's change that committee, and we put all nominated women as senators. But when it comes to voting, will they vote? And the fact is, they will not vote. Mr. Speaker, we talked about the issue of men versus women. Those are very emotive issues. But when it comes to a process which is clearly defined by the Constitution, the only people who will vote are the leaders of the delegation. And by design, or rather by the way things are in this country, unfortunately, most of the people who are elected as senators are men. It is a very sad situation, but is that something now that we have to go back to the voters and tell them that make sure that tomorrow when there's a woman who wants to become a senator, elect her. We are talking about this issue of two-thirds gender, but really, should it be a big argument when we are discussing issues of whether to allow 11 of our colleagues? You know, Mr. Speaker, the majority leader, when he sits here, is a very intelligent gentleman. He's not a member of that committee. He chose other members of his party who he thought that would be able to ensure that they give justice to this lady. The minority leader also chose members on this side without looking at the gender. The only thing that we emphasize on was that you are removing a governor. When you are removing a governor, you as an elected senator traverse the entire county to seek for vote. That governor traversed the entire county. If you come and remove that governor and ultimately you don't even have a vote to determine whether she goes home or not, what will it help? So, Mr. Speaker, I want to beseech my colleagues here that let us not trivialize this matter. Let us not bring the issue of two-thirds gender rule to determine how we are going to defend devolution. You know, it is quite sad, Mr. Speaker, that we are sitting in this house today on a special sitting, barely 3 months since the Honorable Governor took office. These are very emotive matters that require sober minds. It requires us to sit down in a committee, go through all the evidence, And then when you come here, because ultimately it will come back to plenary. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to plenary, I want to hear whoever is going to be elected as the chairperson of that committee convincing me whether I should vote to send that governor home or to retain her. My job is really not to impeach a governor. There is no senator here who can impeach a governor. A governor can only be impeached by the MCS. Our job is just to go through. We actually will be working as if we are, what do you call it? Huh? You know, there's a word, they use it a lot in America. As a jury. So our job is like as a jury. So we'll be sitting there and saying, did they follow the law? One. Okay, if they presented evidence that the governor spent the money at source, is it true? And then we leave the matters of the court to be dealt by the court. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I would like to beseech this House to support the committee way. Let us give the men and women who are put in that committee an opportunity to be able to go through the evidence, investigate the matter. Let's listen to the content of the motion is to investigate and determine whether or not the assembly followed the law. Mr. Speaker, finally, as I sit down, there are issues of preliminary orders that will come. You know, POs or preliminary objections. This House sitting in plenary will not give that governor an opportunity for the lawyers to argue as to why we should not proceed with this matter. But when we sit in a committee and you are brought in a PO from a high court of Kenya, you will get an opportunity to go through it. We have a very able secretariat who will be able to tell us, okay, we have matters either sub judice, this matter will become sub judice, or we are barred by the court. So let's stop this political process. And by then, the matter ends there. Mr. Speaker, we had a case of Taita Taveta. When it was brought before this House, we chose the committee way. When we chose the committee way, when they went, the first order of business was to seek whether there is a court order. When they saw that there was a court order, that matter rested there. So there's no one who will be prejudiced by us going through the committee. So, Mr. Speaker, I plead with my colleagues. Let us go through the committee way. We give these distinguished senators an opportunity to be able to investigate and save devolution. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Senator Mungatano.
I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also share my thoughts. Mr. Speaker, President Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States, was quoted as saying, when Congress is in plenary, Congress is in exhibition. When Congress is in committee, Congress is at work. Mr. Speaker, let us put aside politics. Let us look at what is before us. What is before us is for us to determine, Mr. Speaker, whether we shall uphold the will of the people of Meru as opposed to the will of 68 members of County Assembly of Meru. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask my colleagues, none of us here is an expert on everything. No senator, Mr. Speaker, is an expert on everything. That is why, Mr. Speaker, we recede to committees so that we can have the benefit of expertise of people who know this stuff. Mr. Speaker, there are audit queries amongst the charges that you have read. Some are lawyers here, some are social scientists, some are engineers, some are traders. You cannot claim to be able to be so knowledgeable that here you are a lawyer, here you are an audit person, and you prosecute the matter in the manner and the depth at which it is required, Mr. Speaker. So I want to urge my fellow colleagues that if we have trust in the capacities of our fellow senators, let us give them that opportunity. And I wanted to ask my sister, Gloria, Senator Gloria, Honorable Senator Gloria, Distinguished Honorable Senator Gloria, Her Highness, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to request her to think about this, The issue of whether the governors who are being selected to sit in that committee, former governors, balances. You can have one way of looking at it, you can have the other way of looking at it. The other way, Mr. Speaker, is that these governors have lived through these experiences, live experience, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, they will be of great use. They will be able to help the committee.
What is your point of order, Senator Gloria? I thought you've been decorated.
Mr. Speaker, I was at the floor of the House executing my point, and I was reprimanded for mentioning that 2 former governors will be sitting in that committee. Mr. Speaker, the same has been done by a male senator, and it is okay with the House. These are the things that I'm talking about. You should retract your statement referencing any former governor sitting in any committee with regards to the impeachment. That is what we are talking about, gender sensitivity.
Senator Gloria, I think Senator Mwangaza was trying to look at the wealth of experience each of these proposed names bring to the committee. Senator Mwangaza, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I don't wish to be distracted in my train of thinking, but I want to urge my fellow friends and colleagues in this House, please, let us not be emotional about this thing. Let us put the correct people. And Mr. Speaker, when I'm looking at this list and commenting on the competences of the membership that has been proposed, I'm not out of order. When I say there are legal issues, and maybe we have lawyers there. When I say there are governance issues, and there are people who have been governors before, Mr. Speaker, I'm not out of order to say that the list that has been proposed, Mr. Speaker, is a competent list. And Mr. Speaker, I wanted also to point out this issue, that whenever we are forming committees, we try to bring regional balance. I have looked at this list, the proposed list, Mr. Speaker. I see that the category of regional balance has been met. The category of new and old members of this Senate has been met. Mr. Speaker, the category of those people who have been in that situation that the subject matter of this motion and those who have not been is met. Mr. Speaker, I don't see why we should spend time on this matter. I am urging this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm urging this House. Cherargei, bwana, sit down, bwana. You have not been given the floor. What's the problem with this guy? No, sit down, bwana. Sit down, you're out of order. No. No, you cannot harass the speaker like that, bwana. You sit down, bwana. No.
Senator Mwangaza, please just have your seat, please.
No. You can't harass the speaker.
Senator Mwangaza,
yes.
Kindly have your seat. Thank you. Senator Cherargei, kindly go through your standing orders. You cannot come to the chair through combative ways. You cannot. You can only raise a point of order if the chair allows. And kindly Senator Chirangei, kindly. Proceed, Senator Mngatana.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I was saying that the category of balancing the membership in terms of regional balance, Mr. Speaker, has been reached. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge this House. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge this House.
Senator Mngatana, have a seat. Senator Chirangei, I want to refer you to Standing Order 121. 2. The Speaker may call a senator whose conduct is disorderly, which you are, to order, and A, caution the senator or order the senator to withdraw from the precincts of the Senate for the remainder of that day's sitting. I'm going to be lenient. I'm going to caution you, but you still proceed to take part in today's proceedings. Kindly, Senator Mngatana, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Senator Onyonka.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to first thank you, Mr. Speaker, for looking this way. Mr. Speaker, if you listen to the argument that Honorable Mngatana is making, he's actually giving a legitimization and an expression as to why he thinks we need to go and hold this exercise in committee. Already the presentation that has been made by none other than the majority leader, he said both options are on the table. I don't understand why he is arguing that according to him, the best way to conduct this exercise is through committee, and yet as members of the Senate, we must be allowed to vent and discuss this matter because we have issues which are outstanding. And I don't want to, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to be a rubber stamp on this exercise. Allow us to vent. Allow us to explain why we disagree with the majority leader. He may have his way, but allow us to have our way, our say.
Senator Onyonka,
yes,
that is exactly what is happening now. Senator Mngatana has taken a position. He wants to persuade you,
yes,
to go the committee way. Let us allow Senator Mngatana to make his contribution.
Thank you, sir. But I hope you will also allow us to make our case.
Senator Mngatana.
Mr. Speaker, as I take my seat, we have been told in submissions by previous speakers that what we are carrying out, Mr. Speaker, is a quasi-judicial function of this Senate. Mr. Speaker, every person who has appeared in a court of law knows...
Honorable Senators, may Senator Mngatana be heard in silence, please.
Mr. Speaker, can I be protected from Senator Chirangei? He is deliberately doing this so that I don't get to persuade other people.
Senator Mngatana, proceed.
Much obliged.
If you have an intervention, you press, you don't shout.
Much obliged. Mr. Speaker, I'm making my last point before I sit. The process we are engaged in, Mr. Speaker, is not ordinary Senate seeking. Mr. Speaker, it is a quasi-judicial function. Mr. Speaker, any person who has been in court, you know, Mr. Speaker, because you also share a legal background, you know, Mr. Speaker, that people must be given an opportunity to be heard. They must be given an opportunity to present their case. They must be given an opportunity to say why they think those charges are right, and the other side to say why they think those charges are wrong. Mr. Speaker, I wonder if it is possible to do that where all of us are seated. Mr. Speaker, that is why traditionally in every court, you give an opportunity when there's only one person listening.
Senator Cherangei. Senator Cherangei.
Throw him out, Mr. Speaker. Throw him out. Throw him out. Throw him out.
Senator Cherangei. I'm afraid.
Go away.
I'm afraid this should serve as a final caution to you. In the next few minutes, if you don't conduct yourself in an orderly manner, I'm afraid you may have to watch these proceedings from outside. Proceed and conclude your contribution, Senator
Yes,
Mwangaza.
Mr. Speaker, I was just saying that a quasi-judicial process means that we are almost behaving like judges where we are. And then when a judge is sitting, Mr. Speaker, it is a different situation. It is better when there are fewer of us than when we are many of us. Because when we are many of us, Mr. Speaker, the whole mood becomes different. That's when you have the Cherargeis and such people intervening, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm saying this, that if it is possible, Mr. Speaker,
Senator, order members, Senator Mgatana,
Yes,
kindly retract.
I retract, Mr. Speaker. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, normally, when people are so many in a group, it is not possible to get all the information that is necessary. So, Mr. Speaker, what I'm asking is this. Let us calm down. Let us have the opportunity to receive all this information through our colleagues. Mr. Speaker, we have trusted our colleagues to bring us information on bills regarding even the Constitution. Why not this one? Serious bills, Mr. Speaker, on money, on everything that pertains to our duties here. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge colleagues, let us trust our colleagues who are in this committee to do the right thing. They will bring the report, we will debate it, we can agree or disagree, but let us give them the opportunity to receive the evidence, to sit with experts, and to give us a proper report. Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Senator Ojenda, Prof.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, under Standing Order 81B1, this House may sit by way of a committee, a special committee, to determine a petition of the nature brought before this House for the removal of the governor of MERU County. Mr. Speaker, under Standing Order 81B2, this House may proceed by way of plenary. And the leader of majority this afternoon has been very particular, Mr. Speaker, because the charges that have been brought under the provisions of Article 181, and I think my Senator Omtata got it wrong, under Section 30.
What is your point of order, Senator Methu? Senator Ojenda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I am listening to, and I would not have wished to disrupt the flow of thought of the good professor, but he's quoting an inexistent standing order. He's talking about 81, and it is not existent. 81 is the right to be heard. Okay, all right. Thank you, Speaker.
It's 08. Proceed, Prof. Just proceed.
I know my standing
proceed,
order.
Professor,
Yes,
proceed. I know you know your standing order. Just proceed.
Chairman of Wildlife and Land has not looked at the standing orders properly. Mr. Speaker, sir, under Order 80, Standing Order 81B2, B2. This House may proceed by way of plenary. And Mr. Speaker, sir, an impeachment undertaken under Article 181 on the basis of gross violation of the Constitution, the commission of national or international crimes, and or abuse of the Constitution has thresholds, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I am happy, Mr. Speaker, sir, that I am not in any committee or in the special committee because I've defended one impeachment successfully, the latest impeachment of Governor Abdullahi. We defended him successfully in court, and the proceedings of this House were thrown out. I'm lucky because I've proceeded before. I've defended some form so that members on either side are informed of who goes into the committee. It is not about who sits in the committee, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I think none of the members who have spoken this afternoon has spoken to the inappropriateness, for instance, of Senator Alwale sitting in the committee, no, or any other senator sitting in the committee, no. It is that neither the leader of minority, my learned brother, sitting right here, should have at least convened a Kamukunji, Mr. Speaker, sir. I believe the same for the other side. You should have convened a Kamukunji so that the names that would have found themselves in the Speaker, sir, in the order paper would have been names that at least we knew and that we are aware, Mr. Speaker, sir, that there will be a committee. I will not say, Mr. Speaker, sir, that either method is better. But a plenary, Mr. Speaker, sir, affords members and all members, including first-term members like myself, and Okenyuri, Senator Okenyuri, who is also serving here for the first time, an opportunity to follow proceedings from an impartial front, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'm informed, Mr. Speaker, sir, that such a proceeding will afford all members an opportunity to listen to the accusations and not just to sit here and wait for a report to be tabled before the Senate. Senator MERU was sharing with me this morning and whispered to me that he would be happy to listen to these proceedings so that a fair impeachment, a fair process of removal under Section 33 of the County Government Act, Mr. Speaker, sir, and this process must be fair. This is the first time, Mr. Speaker, sir, that a woman is appearing before Senate for impeachment. Second time. I think there was a Senator before, was Governor Anwar Guru in the last Senate, in the 12th Senate. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the gender card or the gender question may not be the strongest card in the constitution of this committee. Though I believe, Mr. Speaker, sir, that a number of 5 for women and 6 for men would have been a fairer balance in this committee. And I speak for women, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is not just because I have been a gender teacher, Mr. Speaker, sir, but I speak to the question of some level of fairness or a feeling of fairness of both women and men who sit in the Senate. But I wish to remind Senator Gloria that, Mr. Speaker, sir, should we proceed by way of plenary, she will not have a right to vote at the end of the process. Should an impeachment be made? But at least it is fair, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this be an all-inclusive process. Ultimately, Mr. Speaker, sir, may I say this, Mr. Speaker, sir, that let us as Senate, whether we decide to go by way of committee or by way of plenary, have a process that is fair, that will give Governor Kawira Mwangaza an opportunity to defend herself, so that finally, if she's found to have breached the Constitution or found not to have breached the Constitution, it will have been a fair process that would speak to what Senate will do from now and in the future. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, let me point to this. It is not about the 67 members of the County Assembly. And I'm informed, Mr. Speaker, sir, that out of those 67 members, at least 21 of those members are from the UDA party, and another 20 from the Mbas party. That means, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we are facing an impeachment for the first time where the governor serving in that county does not belong to any party because she's an independent. This is therefore a very delicate impeachment. It should not therefore be made to appear, Mr. Speaker, sir, that any singular party in the committee that this House forms is from the party that forms the majority in the county assembly, and from the party that therefore was instrumental in the impeachment. So as you form the committee, Mr. Speaker, sir, and this is, for me, this is, since I have no interest in this process, let the committee be a committee that would speak to the fairness of this process. If it is plenary, Mr. Speaker, sir, let the process be fair. That is all I will say with respect to this matter, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 111, in view of the number of senators wishing to speak to this motion, may I propose, subject to your concurrence, that we limit the time per speaker. Currently, we are doing 20 minutes per speaker. And with the number that I'm seeing on the screen, we may go beyond midnight. So with your concurrence, can we limit the time from 20 minutes maybe to 5 minutes? Do I have your concurrence? Yes. So clerk, time 5 minutes per senator. Senator Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion. Mr. Speaker, this special sitting is to achieve two things. One, to berate the charges preferred against the governor, which we have done. Two, is for this House to decide whether we will proceed through a special committee or the plenary. Mr. Speaker, this is the first impeachment in this parliament. And so the country is watching, the country is listening. And Mr. Speaker, our function under Article 96 of the Constitution to represent the counties and the county governments. This function today, Mr. Speaker, is in exercise of that particular article. But Mr. Speaker, I want to support the committee way for a very simple reason, Mr. Speaker. If you look at the function of this committee or the plenary, is to investigate the matter. Mr. Speaker, what is to investigate? If you read the Oxford Dictionary, Mr. Speaker, investigate means carry out a systematic, formal inquiry to discover and examine the facts so as to establish the truth. Mr. Speaker, I want to put a question to my colleagues and to this House. If we quote a plenary way, Mr. Speaker, can the plenary, Mr. Speaker, be able to carry out a systematic and formal inquiry? The answer to that question, Mr. Speaker, in my view, is a big no. Will it be able to discover and examine the facts with the intention of knowing the truth? Again, Mr. Speaker, the answer is no. That can be achieved, Mr. Speaker, through a special committee, because they will have a moment, a time to inquire systematically, formally, and discover and examine the facts laid before the committee. Mr. Speaker, there are 7 judges preferred against the governor from the impeachment motion. It will be difficult, Mr. Speaker, for this House, using the definition of that aspect of investigation, to undertake that process and achieve a fair process, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it may be interesting for us to debate this House, Mr. Speaker, this matter. But remember, Mr. Speaker, our whole county is listening. Services and goods and services for the people of MERU County, Mr. Speaker. A Kenyan by the name of the governor is going through this situation. Mr. Speaker, this committee, if approved by the House, will be able to have a better time. Mr. Speaker, that is the reason why I support the committee way. Mr. Speaker, going committee way again does not prejudice members' right to again discuss this matter when the committee tables a report. So none of us, Mr. Speaker, will suffer a prejudice of not being able to discuss this matter when the committee brings the report. What is only important, Mr. Speaker, in my view, is for the committee to be fair, to systematically and formally inquire into the issues in a fair manner. Mr. Speaker, this House is a special institution on matters devolution. So that, Mr. Speaker, after this impeachment process, should there be any other impeachment thereafter, Mr. Speaker, we should be seen as a House that is.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia mswada wa kuchagua kamati maalumu ya kuchunguza madai yaliyoletwa katika bunge hili na kamati na bunge la kaunti ya Meru. Mheshimiwa Spika, kifungu cha 81 ya kanuni zetu kinasema kwamba bunge la Senate linaweza kwenda kwa njia ya bunge lote ama kwa njia ya kamati maalumu ya kuweza kuchunguza madai hayo. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna ile tunaita umuhimu katika njia zote mbili katika kuchunguza swala hili, na mpaka sasa nafikiri yaliyoletwa mbele ya bunge hili ni madai tu. Wakati bunge litakapokaa, makamati itakapokaa, ndio ule ushahidi kuthibitisha madai yale ndio ataweza kufikishwa mbele ya kamati ile ama bunge hili ili kuweza kuamua kama kweli mashtaka yana uzito ama hayana uzito. Kwa hivyo ningependa tu kusema kuwa si kweli kwamba bunge hili sio mahakama. Sasa itakaa kama mahakama kuweza kuchunguza ukweli wa madai ambayo yamewasilishwa na bunge la kaunti ya Meru. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna uzito kuhusiana na madai ambayo yameletwa kwamba jinsia moja imepunjwa katika uteuzi wa komiti hii. Kuna uzito fulani Mheshimiwa Spika, na hatuwezi kuupuuza. Mheshimiwa Spika, pia ipo haja kwamba bunge hili, kwa kuwa ni bunge jipya na ni mara ya kwanza swala kama hili linafika katika bunge hili, ipo haja ya wabunge waweze kukaa wa kusikiza. Na nimeona leo japokuwa ni kamati maalumu, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kikao maalumu, tumeweza kupata karibu full house. Kila senator ameweza kuacha kazi zake akaja katika kituo hicho, na nina imani kwamba iwapo itafanywa kwamba ni bunge zima likae kusikiza madai haya, bunge hili litaweza kuvunja kazi zao, waweze kukaa hapa kusikiza kuanzia mwanzo mpaka mwisho na uamuzi uweze kutolewa. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kuweza kuwapa maseneta wapya fursa ya kuangalia masuala kama haya, ingekuwa bora, kwa kuwa hii ndio kesi ya kwanza tunasikiza katika masuala ya kuwachunguza magavana, wapewe fursa kupitia kwa kamati ya bunge zima kuweza kuchunguza swala hili, alafu uamuzi utakaotoka itakuwa ni funzo kwa wale ambao hawajapata fursa ya kuweza kuchunguza magavana kama hii. Mheshimiwa Spika, hiyo itakayofuata Mheshimiwa Spika, tunaweza kwenda katika kamati maalum, lakini kwa vile ni ya kwanza katika bunge hili, itakuwa bora tuichunguze kama bunge zima la Senate, ili kuhakikisha kwamba kila mtu ameweza kupata fursa ya kusikiza kesi ile. Wale ambao watakuwa wanalala, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni jukumu lao, kwa sababu hata sasa pia kuna wengine katika bunge hili wamelala, hawajui kitu gani kinachoendelea. Kwa hivyo swala kwamba baadhi ya maseneta watakuwa hawana hamu ya kusikiza ushahidi, hiyo ni singizio tunakuweza kukataa mfumo huu. Mheshimiwa Spika, vile vile pia hata katika kamati, sisi tunajua kamati zetu nyingi za Senate zikikaa katika vikao, ni wachache wanaochangia masuala yaliyoko katika kamati. Kwa hivyo hiyo itakuwa sio mara ya kwanza kufanya hivyo, na tungeomba Mheshimiwa Spika kwamba kwa kuwa hii ni ya kwanza katika bunge hili, tungependa ifanyike katika kikao cha bunge zima, ili tuweze kusoma wale ambao hawajaweza kufuata swala kama hili, nao pia waweze kupata ujuzi ama uzoefu wa masuala kama haya. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, this Parliament has a history. It has tradition of handling emotive, sensitive issues. I want to remind colleagues that when Josiah Mwangi Kariuki was killed, the matter was handled in this very house by a committee. When Robert Ouko was killed, the matter was handled in this house by a committee. Mr. Speaker, when we are dealing with the greatest oversight role of this house, it is discharged through the Committee of Public Accounts and Committee of Public Investments, a committee. It is not by accident that such emotive issues are taken to committees. Today, we are making a decision whether the governor of MERU should be tried. She's on trial. She is on trial. Whether she should be tried in the Committee of the Whole or this special committee. Learning from the traditions, customs, and practices of this house, the natural thing would be we drink from the glass of wisdom of the members of Parliament who came before us. Mr. Speaker, my second comment is that the people of Meru are anxiously waiting for what we are doing and the Republic of Kenya in its entirety. They are glued on the television sets. They want to see and are following what we are doing. They would like to find out, can these senators rise to the apex enough to be trusted, not with listening to the impeachment of a governor, but can they be trusted if a day was to come, God forbid, when they were to sit on the trial of removal of a president? This is what the dress rehearsal is about in the eyes of Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, sir, I kindly request colleagues that if what Senator Gloria has said is true, the person to blame is not us, the plenary. She has a leader of the majority who went through a process that informed him to take certain people on his side and others were left. Let her not bring it here. Same to the minority side. The matter is so important that we would be catwalking if we thought that today we are meeting to make a decision on gender. No. Mr. Speaker, you have read out the charges. Not the first, not the second. None of them is it about gender. It is about issues which we don't know about. Senator, just allow me to finish. I never objected to you. Hold my time.
May the
I appeal.
Senator for Kakamega behind his side.
Yes, I appeal to you. I know you have
Senator,
promised.
proceed. Don't start a debate.
Thank you. I know that she has promised that she wants to school me in matters gender. Really? Really? I was elected by over 250,000 people in Kakamega, men and women, and the women were the majority. So I know issues of gender. I have many children. The majority of them are girls.
Order,
I know matters of gender. Mr. Speaker, I have got more than one wife. I know matters of gender. She can't school me. Excuse me, my daughter. You have to apologize to the bullfighter of Kakamega.
Order, members. To us,
my last point, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Boni, to us, you're an honorable senator. We don't see you as a bullfighter. Kindly conclude.
Thank you. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I look at the 11 distinguished senators who have made their way on this committee. And Mr. Speaker, I single out Senator Mandago and Senator Ali Roba. If you are forming, Mr. Speaker, just 1 minute, my time was wasted. 1 minute, I conclude.
Senator Gloria, please allow the senator to conclude. Conclude, Senator. I'm afraid, Senator Boni, your time is spent. Senator Edwin Sifuna.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also contribute to the motion. And for the record, I rise to support the motion that we proceed by way of committee. Mr. Speaker, as I understand the mandate of this committee and has been submitted by my colleagues, is to investigate and find out and report to this House whether indeed the matters, the allegations that you've read out against the governor are substantiated. So that, Mr. Speaker, all this committee is supposed to do, if the accusation is that there has been nepotism exercised by the governor, to report back to this House and say, yes, that allegation has been substantiated. On the question of illegal appointments, yes, it has been substantiated or not. Mr. Speaker, I would also want to encourage Senator Gloria to understand that, in fact, if you go percentage-wise, Mr. Speaker, percentage-wise, to have 3 women out of a committee of 11 is actually greater than to have 3 women out of 47 elected senators deciding on a matter. Because, Mr. Speaker, as you know, when it comes to the question of the vote,
Senator Gloria, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, my point of order is that there are senators who are misleading the House on facts and on matters numbers. And Mr. Speaker, my point of order, even to Senator Boni Walale and to Senator Edwin Sifuna, is that you cannot come to Senate and actually institute discrimination by trying to convince this House that there is a formula that says that when you have less women at the table of representation, that is the formula that Kenyans should accept because it works best for gender. That is misleading the House. And this is not a matter about bullfighting or how many women or 3 against. This is a matter of representation. And Mr. Speaker, you should not allow the conversations that are going on in this House to continue, because this is a house of order. This is a house that respects women, and this is a house that is supposed to actually ensure that Governor Kawira gets a fair hearing. My point of order is that Senator Edwin Sifuna is misleading the House by trying to tell the House that the formula of 3 women senators against basically out of 11, 3 women senators, that is the best formula to have women represented in this committee. Mr. Speaker, you can see why we have an issue with this. This is exactly the reason why we cannot entrust people who are actually disregarding women in this House. That is my point of order.
Senator Gloria, you cannot stand on a point of order.
It was my point of order.
To the sherry. Kindly proceed and conclude. And please allow Senator Sifuna to recover his time.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am not a math teacher, but I will help the House. It is not misleading, Mr. Speaker, because you have the list of the number of women senators elected out of the 47 counties. We only know the senator from Nakuru, my sister from Machakos, and the good lady from Isiolo. What we are saying is, if you do a basic arithmetic, 3 out of 47 is smaller. It's actually 6%. Compared to 3 out of 11 is a bigger fraction. That's what I'm saying. But Mr. Speaker, that being beside the point, let it be known that I'm not trying to mislead this House. I am a firm believer in equality, Mr. Speaker, that in fact, every woman has the same capacity to misconduct herself as the men. So, Mr. Speaker, this is not a question that should be viewed through the lenses of gender. What we want to do, whether we establish a committee or whether we proceed by the whole House, Mr. Speaker, is to find out indeed, is it true, the allegations that have been laid against the governor. In this particular question, we are supposed to be blind. Justice is blind. We do not see color, we do not see gender, we do not see ethnicity, Mr. Speaker. We are just looking at the allegations that have been leveled vis-a-vis, the law. Mr. Speaker, I am also a firm believer that in fact there is no grace period for misconduct. You know, the question of how long it should take before you start raising these questions has been raised in a public forum. I have seen people misconduct themselves even with the oath of office when they are taking oath of office, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker,
may the senator be heard in silence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Glory. Kindly proceed and conclude your contribution.
Mr. Speaker, therefore, what I want to encourage this House, because I was feeling the weight of responsibility as a person who's been proposed to sit on this committee, somebody who's supposed to miss Christmas with his family. But I can see the mood in the House is that maybe all of us should miss Christmas, which is okay for me. I don't have a problem. I am just saying, Mr. Speaker, that I wish I was not part of that committee, that it was Senator Gloria here sitting here to spend her Christmas here. But if you want us all to spend Christmas here, it is also okay, Mr. Speaker. So, in conclusion, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Gloria, we are not in some market in the outskirts of Nairobi. If you need to make a point of order, you press the button. It will be upon the chair to give you the platform or to deny you the platform. Kindly proceed.
Mr. Speaker, can I conclude? Because we were with you here, Mr. Speaker, just a few weeks ago when there were the Yala games going on. And it's a similar thing with the Christmas holidays, Mr. Speaker. We had problems raising quorum in this House, Mr. Speaker, if you remember, because most of the members chose to go to Juba. We are going to have the same problem. These people are just saying here, oh, we want the whole House, we want the whole House. But we know the members of this House who are committed to come and actually prosecute matters here, Mr. Speaker. So we might have better success. Mr. Speaker, I need your protection. Mr. Speaker, I need your protection. Because this is something we have experienced, Mr. Speaker. That in fact
Senator Sifuna, just take a seat. Honorable Senators, it is not the wish of the chair to send any senator out of these chambers. But that's my wish, and may not necessarily carry the day today. The standing orders will carry the day today. Senator Gloria, I'm cautioning you under Standing Order 121. Should you proceed in the manner you're proceeding, I'm afraid the standing orders may have their way. Conclude, Senator Sifuna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The point that I was making, Mr. Speaker, is previous experience has shown that in fact we might get a lot more work and ground covered in committee than in plenary because of the issues that I have raised regarding the question of quorum. So, Mr. Speaker, to just conclude and allow my colleagues to also contribute, I rise to support this, and not because I'm a member of that committee. I would very happily cede this particular position to anybody else who wants to release me to go and have Christmas with my children. It will not be a bad thing, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Senator Methu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would first wish to state that I rise to support the motion of having 11 of us look at the evidence that has been brought by the County Assembly of Meru. And first and foremost, Mr. Speaker, I would really wish to state that all of us in this Senate, we enjoy the same space and the scope of duty, and I believe, having looked at the members who are there, I'm completely satisfied that they'll be able to take up on this job. I am particularly impressed, Mr. Speaker, that the Senate Business Committee and the Leader of Majority and Leader of Minority have given especially first-timers and young people an opportunity to serve in this committee. I've seen my colleagues, the Senator Karongo Adhangwa, I've seen Senator S.C. Okenyuri, I've seen Senator Eddie Gicheru, young people who are ambitious and they want to learn, and they will be able to tap into the experience that has been spoken about by my brother Senator Giduku. I hear by extension that Senator Sifuna is a young man. I don't know. I only hear that he's a young person. Although he does not appear to be what people impute, but anyway, I'll include him in that list of the young people because he's also coming in as a first-timer. Mr. Speaker, I would also wish to say this. In as far as we are looking at this matter, it is not really fair for anybody to impute that because the governor for Meru is a woman, they are supposed to be given special consideration. That the other time that the governor for another county who be a man is here, then he can be allowed to be dealt with by the Akina Medus, Akina Redama, Akina Charargeis of this world. There's no problem. But because this one is a woman, then we should treat her and put more in it. Then I would say that the other time that we have a man, then probably men would demand that all of us would be in that committee so that we're able to also take care of the men. I am personally a gender sensitive person. I do not need the schooling that was offered by our colleague. I actually did it from home. I'm a father of 3 girls and 1 boy. So I think the responses are just around my home. I'm able to look at take care of them. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it is actually, and the Senator for Nairobi has spoken about it, it's actually that our colleagues are taking the burden off our shoulders. It is them that will be able to look at, and I've seen the charges, there are so many. They are supposed to look at all the charges one by one and look at the evidence that is being adduced one by one, and then they will be able to make a determination on whether the charges are correct or not correct, there are facts to it or no facts to it. And so our colleagues, the 11 that will be in that committee, I would wish to wish you all the best. It is quite unfortunate that you not be able to enjoy Christmas with your people, but it is the cost of service. That is why you ran for positions. That is why you are allowed to serve as senators. I know the Leader of Majority has said that from the contract, I don't know what lenses the Leader of Majority is using. He's saying that in his own preliminary observations, we may be getting more customers in the coming days. I would really hope that we do not get customers for the next 5 years, because the more customers we get, the more unstable our counties are getting. So, Mr. Speaker, I support. I wish the committee all the best. I will be here to help you and support you